to another, I guess, Guardian build video. So today we have another Stasis build. This one's actually kind of a classic in my opinion, and this specific build has kind of grown over the years. So let me show you what I currently have for this build. So there's really nothing great in the Winter's Wrath department. It's the only super we have, so I'm just going to kind of gloss over it because we're actually not really making use of this at all. And you'll see why in a moment. But for our Rift, because I'm not like the super pro player that some people are on YouTube, I'm going to go with Healing Rift. With our movement, I'm going to go with Burst Glide. I don't really necessarily care too much for control, as I do with just the extra oomph. And for our melee, because we totally have options, we're going to go with Penumbral Blast. And unlike our melee, for our grenade of choice, we do have the other two, but I think this will actually best work with this build. So we're going to go with Cold Snap Grenade. Basically the gist with Cold Snap, you throw it at an enemy. If you can directly hit the enemy, it will slow them. The moment it hits the floor, it's going to seek an enemy, freeze them, and then seek another enemy and freeze them, so on and so forth. I think it does it up to 3 enemies, and that's about it. But this is a really good way to help you get some level of control in the battlefield. And depending on how you have your Guardian set up, you can actually make use of some other things involving this grenade. But for our aspects, typically, oh yeah, that's something I forgot. A bit of context, in the past, before the Witch Queen came out, the DLC, we actually paired the Ice Flare, or the Cold Snap Grenade with the Ice Flare Bolts. They basically are the same thing, it's just one is an aspect, the other one's a grenade. So when you get weapon kills, or weapon final blows as this game calls it, it essentially will seek another enemy. It has to be a frozen enemy, by the way. It'll seek another enemy, freeze them, you do the same thing, so on and so forth. So this pretty much gave you a lot of control. But I actually ran this not too long ago, and I found that it wasn't really that, in my opinion, not really that good anymore, or at least kind of lost its luster with me. So I went with Glacial Harvest. Glacial Harvest, we're going to make use of getting our melee back through this. So picking up our Stasis shards will give us our melee energy. And Frost Pulse will allow us to essentially be able to take more damage. We can heal, and then as we heal, we're also going to immediately freeze the enemies in our immediate vicinity. So, as you can imagine, with some of our fragments here, we actually might make use of that. So, speaking of fragments, we have Whisper of Conduction. As we make those Stasis shards, we're not really going to try to go out there to get them, so we'll have them come to us. Whisper of Torment, we are definitely going to be taking damage while we are out there, so why not try to turn that damage or convert it into grenade energy? So this will allow us to build up on our grenade, or build up on our grenade energy as we take damage. Whisper of Bonds, since we are going to be freezing enemies left and right, we can defeat frozen, yes, Travis, frozen targets, it will give us super energy. And then our last fragment is going to be Whisper of Chains. Because we're actually going to be using the route of taking damage to get our grenade energy, I'd rather us have a kind of a contingency plan. So with Frost Pulse, freezing the enemies all around us, this is what will allow us to gain damage reduction while being able to take enough damage to get our grenades back, essentially. So we're actually going to be making use of both of these together. And then of course, because they're frozen and you end up killing them, boom, that's free super energy too. So all 3 of those fragments actually work well together. But that's enough of these. So we're about to go ahead and head over to our, armor. We're going to do armor first. Alright, so the name of the game with this build is to lean into our Healing Rift and our weapon. So we're going to make use of our exotic armor choice, our exotic weapon choice, and our Healing Rift quite a bit. And if we really need to, we can use our grenades, but our grenades are not going to be producing our orbs of power this time around. But what we do have here that will be producing orbs of power, we're going to be making use of harmonic siphon and kinetic siphon because we do have both types of weapons in our arsenal. Getting rapid final blows with our stasis weapon will allow us to produce an orb of power. And then rapid final blows with kinetic weapons will do the same thing. And then of course, when we do find ourselves in close conflict or close quarters with our enemies, we'll make use of Frost Pulse, which makes use of Dynamo, which makes use of the damage reduction and getting our grenade back. You kind of see where this is going. So, yeah. And because our grenade is not really going to produce our orbs of power, we're actually going to make use of cooldowns. So we're going to kind of manipulate the cooldown to allow our grenades and class ability to come back. So impact induction, when we cause damage with a melee, which we will, the penumbral blast basically will damage the enemy first and then freeze them. So they'll get damaged, and as a result, we will have our grenade and our class ability cooldown reduced as a result of causing damage with our melee. And then of course, when we do manage to freeze our enemies, we're also going to be damaging enemies with our grenade. So likewise here, we're going to lower our cooldown for our class ability as a result. For our chest piece, we have Stasis Reserves, so this allows us to carry some more ammo for our weapon of choice. And then of course, we're actually going to be making use of our Stasis Weapon Surge down there, making use of our consumer mod. So we have charged up, so that way we can get as many armor charges as possible. And speaking of capitalizing on armor charges, we have Stacks on Stacks, which for every 1 orb of power that we pick up, that will equate to 2 armor charges. So with like 2 or 3 of them, we can pretty much max out our armor charges, which can allow us to do some things. Also, when we pick up our orbs of power, we're reducing the cooldown of our grenade, so that way we can use that when we need to. And then for our consumer mod, we have Stasis Weapon Surge. So this is I think this is a flat 10% boost. So the moment we pick up an orb of power and it gives us our armor charge, it will activate this. As long as we have our armor charges active, we continuously will get 10% more weapon damage from stasis weapons. And for each weapon, or from each orb of power that we pick up, we're using time dilation so that way we can extend the overall time of each armor charge. So instead of the usual 10 seconds, it's now 15 per charge. And just in case if the weapons were not producing the orbs of power quick enough, we also have our backup plan with our great and tried and true Reaper mod. Basically, in my case, use the healing rift, get a weapon kill or a weapon final blow, and boom, free orb of power right there, which is a free 2 armor charges. And then we have special finisher. So the reason why I have this is because one of the crutches of this build is ammo. Ammo economy is going to kind of suck because with trace rifles, they're not like guns. It's not going to have infinite ammo. It has a stream of ammo that it will chew through. And because I have my weapon of choice where it's actually going to take ammo from reserves and keep refilling it with each kill, which means I'm just going to chew through ammo that much quicker. So with our armor charges, since we will be making quite a few of them, for every 3 stacks of armor charges we have, we just have to do a finisher on an enemy, and that enemy will guarantee us special ammo, so we can at least make use of getting it back. Before this video, I actually did make use of the ammo finder, like special ammo finder. At the time, I was kind of working with it a little bit, so if you want to run that, you can, but I would suggest this so that way you can capitalize on your orbs of power. And for our armor choice here, we have the Mantle of Battle Harmony. This has kind of been a classic. It is a subclass neutral exotic, so you can use this on any subclass for the Warlock. And The thing that it specializes in is its trait. So the intrinsic perk or trait is absorption cells. Takedowns with weapons that have a damage type matching your subclass. Basically, if you are making kills with weapons that match your subclass, then that will give you super energy. While your super energy is full, so if your super is full and you don't want to use it, then you'll get a temporary bonus to weapon damage. I think it's like 20% or something like that of the type matching your subclass. So, let's say for us, let's say our Shadebinder is ready to just use Winter's Wrath. What if I don't want to use it? I can use, let's say, like a Stasis rocket or a Stasis machine gun or maybe a Stasis trace rifle. I don't know. I could use any Stasis weapon at that point and just get like a flat 20% boost if I didn't want to use Winter's Wrath. But in our case, we really will make use of the first one, not so much the second one, just because of how we're actually going to make use of our choice of weapons. Alright, so speaking of weapons, we have Cold Comfort. Chill Clip is the only reason why that I really have it. Plus, this was my first rocket from this season. If you are watching this now, then we're currently in the middle of Season of the Deep. So I got this from that. And I don't know if this is the god roll, so to speak, but what I like about it is that it's chill clip. So 2 shots from this baby and it'll freeze an enemy. And then if you, let's say, use this against an unstoppable. Freeze the unstoppable. Use another weapon to break the frozen state, causing the shatter damage to happen and causing that unstoppable to be stunned. If you use this baby, it's going to do some damage. So that's the reason why I have this. Plus, because it has chill clip, anytime a champion goes through their invulnerability stage, you just get 2 shots off for this baby, and you're going to find yourself freezing them even through that invulnerability stage, and it will time them out. So when you go to shatter them again, they'll just get stunned again. So it's actually a really good way to keep the champions at bay. I have title, so if you guys have watched my previous video, you're probably wondering why I use this so much. I use this because of Classic Contender, so any weapon or any final blows with this weapon, it will give me class ability energy. So this is a great way to top off my healing rift if I'm ever in a bind. But if you're using this weapon in waves, then you really shouldn't have to worry about that. You're probably looking at one of my favorite weapons, the Agar Scepter. I think that's an ornament I have on, but pay no mind to that. So Agar Scepter. I love this weapon. I just recently got over 20,000 kills with it. And it is the exotic trace rifle that came out before the Witch Queen storyline came in. And this weapon was and is still a beast. So this weapon has the intrinsic perk or trait of Agar's Call. So final blows with this weapon generate a slowing burst around the defeated target. Its other trait is the Riga's Refrain, which is Stasis final blows transfer ammo to this weapon's magazine from reserves. So this is what I mean about ammo economy not being so great with this weapon. But the bigger elephant in the room is this right here, the intrinsic trait. This doesn't actually tell you the whole story. So as you probably hear from other people who use this weapon, they'll more or less tell you that this slowing burst doesn't necessarily happen all the time. In fact, what will happen most of the time, and what will feel like all the time, is that your enemies will downright freeze after you make a kill with this weapon. That just seems to happen quite often. So the slowing thing, not so much, but freezing, yes. And if you do have this weapon, go after this. This will be the saving grace for this build. So exotic weapons have received a buff over the years, and all with the exception of the Xenophage have all received buffs. So I think it's like 20 to 40% now more weapon damage for exotics, but if so, so let's say theoretically that's the case. This has a mode on it to where you can consume your super in replace to giving this more damage. So if you hold the reload button, whatever bind that would be for you if you're a keyboard and mouse, and for PlayStation players it would be the square button. But either way, if you hold this down, it will go ahead and overload this weapon, gives you a bunch of ammo, and as you're firing this beam, it's just going to start constantly freezing the enemy. So you're getting those shatter effects going off constantly. And I believe this actually gives it an 80% weapon damage buff. And I think that actually works on top of the overall buffs that this weapon has already received. Plus, with our weapon surge mod that we have, well, let's say we're looking at 40%. So 40 and 80 is 130, plus this gives us 10, so about 140%. Now, I'm pretty sure you can most likely get it to 150, but we're at 140% damage for a brief time. And the best thing about this weapon is that the kills that we make are still going to proc Mantle Battle Harmony's absorption cells, so we're actually gaining super energy as we get those kills, allowing the weapon to maintain its overflow state longer. So that's pretty much this build. I would think this is a very weapon focused build, but it's also a very consistent build for your weapon. Again, if you do not have the Aggro Scepter, I believe it should be in the vault now, in the tower. So definitely try to get it, and definitely go after the Catalyst. It is definitely worth it, and I think you will love this weapon as I have loved it forever, and I still love it today. So I will see you guys in the next video of whatever I decide to do. Till then, ta-ta for now. And stay tuned, by the way, guys. So stay subscribed, like the video, and stay tuned for the next video where I will actually be showcasing a build that you guys had liked. Alright, I'll see you guys later.